Thank you, Ross. It's a great pleasure to be back here, albeit virtually, at the 172nd Earl Marischal. It's been a highlight of the year since I was at university, as you so kindly remarked. It was quite a long time ago now, and I'm really honoured to be back. I feel almost though I might be like that old relative that turns up every year and you can't get rid of. But it is a great pleasure to be back. I must say one thing has changed since the last time I spoke, and usually, and I mean for many, many years, the motion before us tonight would read that this House has no faith in Her Majesty's government. The fact that we are debating instead as to whether we have any faith in the Scottish government obviously means that the members of Debater and University of Aberdeen have decided that they all have confidence in Her Majesty's government and the way that we are governing the entire United Kingdom at this time. But I would argue that we have no faith in the Scottish government. And I suggest that the members of Debater and people attending this evening should have no faith in them either. A failed, centralising, ideologically bankrupt, single-issue pressure group masquerading as a party of government. And I would argue that Scotland deserves much better. I think it's simply impossible to have faith in an executive that has failed so markedly, failed in education, the economy, on economic growth, failing Scots on jobs, failing Scots on the health service, failing Scots on drugs tests, infrastructure, failing Scots on broadband rollout, failing Scots on local funding. I don't know how anyone could have confidence in this party of government. I'll take a point of information from, I've got two, Neil Findlay and then Richard Thompson. I'll take them at the same time.
Yeah,
it's only you can't offer points of information to your own side.
Oh, right, okay. And Richard Thompson.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wonder, Andrew, if you could remind us which government has responsibility for regulation over telecommunications and broadband, and if the Scottish government that we're invited to have no confidence in is doing such a rotten job, why is your party fighting for third place rather than first?
Well, Richard, on your first question, obviously the competencies for rolling out broadband and telecommunications network in the UK are shared between the UK and the Scottish government. If that wasn't the case, then why would the Scottish government have their R100 scheme, for which the minister in charge of it, Fergus Ewing, offered to resign if it wasn't successful by the end of 2021. Latest projections are that it won't succeed until 2026. And on the other point that you asked the question about, if you would just bide your time and be patient, I will expand my arguments as to why we should have no confidence in the 13 failed years of Scottish National Party government in Scotland. I mean, I want to look at the record of the Scottish government. Education, the attainment gap, wider now than when the Scottish National Party came into power. Kids from disadvantaged backgrounds less likely to get into university in Scotland than they are in England. And this was Nicola Sturgeon's top priority, she said when she became First Minister. Education was going to be the top priority. I'd hate to see what happens to priorities that are further down her list of things that she wants to deal with. Jobs in the economy, projected growth in Scotland of only 1.8% expected in 2022 post-pandemic, compared to a rate of 5% predicted from the rest of the UK, and a jobs growth rate less than the rest of the UK prior to the coronavirus pandemic. And health, an absolutely abysmal record on health. This 12-week treatment time guarantee, which was supposed to see every patient in Scotland seen within 12 weeks of going on a waiting list. On great fanfare by the First Minister when she was Health Secretary in 2011, has never once been met. We're expecting a shortfall of GPs in Scotland of about 856 by the end of this year. The disgrace, the absolute disgrace of deaths of patients at Glasgow's Queen Elizabeth Hospital due to failures in water quality and ventilation systems, and Edinburgh Royal Hospital for sick children. Delayed again, due to open in 2012. Let's just put 2012 into perspective here. At Aberdeen University, I was chairman of the University Conservatives in 2012. David Cameron was still Prime Minister. Barack Obama was still President of the United States of America. The United Kingdom was still in the European Union when this hospital was supposed to be opened. You know when it actually opened its doors to sick children in Edinburgh? 4 weeks ago, 9 years late. And whilst we're on health, as Neil Findlay has already pointed out, drugs deaths. Scotland has the highest drug death rate in Europe. Now, the SNP will say that they don't have the powers to deal adequately with issues surrounding misuse of drugs in Scotland. And there are powers that the Westminster government could use if it chose to address some of these issues. I accept that. And there's a debate ongoing within government now as to whether we should. But the SNP, the police, They are in charge of public health. They are in charge of local government. They have all the powers needed to act on drugs deaths. Instead, what did they do when they were in power? Well, whilst they were still in power, they withdrew the number of drugs deaths, drugs rehab beds in Scotland. What a disgrace. New ferries unfinished on the slipways. Look, this is not a debate. Richard raised independence and the power of Scotland to determine the future. This evening's debate is not a debate about independence. It's not a debate about where you think the constitutional future of the United Kingdom lies or where you think the powers should lie to make Scotland a better place for all of us. And of course, all of us want to see a better future for this whole country. This is about whether you have confidence in this Scottish government. You can believe that Scotland should be independent. You can believe that Scotland should remain in the United Kingdom. But I put it to you that you should support the motion in front of us. You cannot have confidence, no matter your opinion on independence or remaining in the United Kingdom, in this government. Why should anybody here have confidence in the Scottish government when the former leader of that very government has today said he's got such little confidence in it, he has founded his own political party to stand candidates in the upcoming Scottish election. Look, in 41 days, all of Scotland will have the opportunity to express its confidence in this government. Sadly, this is likely to be overshadowed yet again by a debate on the Constitution, as every election in Scotland seems to have been since 2014. But tonight you, the students of Scotland's finest higher educational establishment, have the opportunity to put that issue to one side and decide on its own whether you think this government deserves to have a vote of confidence or whether it does not have our confidence. And for all the reasons I have given above, and more, which we'll hear as we go through the evening, I would suggest that we simply cannot have confidence in this Scottish government.
So now for Andrew. Aberdeen is an important hub for the whole of the north of Scotland, and recently John Lewis announced its closure of its department store in Aberdeen. I, for one, am very sad. In what way should a future Scottish government invest in the city in order to support communities in the north of Scotland, not just including Aberdeen?
Well, Ross, that's a really good question, and there's a lot of people hurting in Aberdeen and in the wider region at the minute, especially at the news of John Lewis closing, but not just at that. I mean, I'm sure Richard would agree with me as an MP in the northeast of Scotland over the past year. It's been, incredibly difficult to see the amount of emails coming in from people looking for support either for their business to keep the doors open, keep people employed, people looking for furlough to see how they can keep paying the bills and put food on the table of their families over what has been an incredibly difficult period. So I think it's going to take both the Scottish government and the UK government to look at what we can do to invest in all of our regions. That's actually one of the reasons why the UK government is so keen on its levelling up agenda. We're determined that when we come through this terrible period that we're living through right now, that we do end up investing in our nations and regions. That's one of the reasons why we saw the £16 billion transition deal, which will benefit the northeast of Scotland. We've just been talking about energy transition and moving towards a renewables future. We absolutely need to invest in developing our manufacturing industries to take advantage of the huge influx that we will be having and investment that we will be having in renewable technologies in this part of the world. We're seeing over 40,000 jobs saved in Aberdeen and the northeast. And I want to see us go further. I want to see us work with the oil and gas companies that are already established here, are already providing employment. If they move away from purely focused on fossil fuel exploitation, developing our renewable and our carbon capture and storage capabilities. I think that's what the UK government should be doing, working with alongside the Scottish government. We also see movement in terms of, you spoke about John Lewis specifically. I think we need to have a wholesale review of how business rates operate. The last review of the business rates in the northeast of Scotland was back in 2014, and I just think that we need to be very, very focused on how we support businesses in our part of the world, but not just our part of the world, how we support businesses across Scotland and the rest of the kingdom, how we help them grow post what has been probably for the economy since the end, certainly since the end of the Second World War.